Dear distinguished guests and participants of the LSE Africa Summit, I'm honored to address you today as we close the first day of this important event. Now, as we say in Tanzania, this is where I'm from, Mambo VP or Shikamo to those who are older than me. I'm really happy to be here. And, I didn't realize that one day I'd be giving a keynote at the LSE Africa Summit. So this is really cool. I remember being in your shoes a couple of years ago as a student. I know some of you guys are wondering, a couple of years ago, what do you mean? Yeah, okay, many more years ago as a student. And the biggest two things I look forward to at these events was, number one was the food. I would go and try to find which sort of jollof rice was being served, because we all know Ghanaian jollof rice is better, but we won't get into that today. But it's because y'all haven't tried that East African biryani though. So once you try the East African biryani, like there's no competition. Anyway, as we all know, Africa is home to the world's youngest population, with over 60% below the age of 25. And I think it leads us to ask a question about what responsibility do we all collectively have in the room to help channel change and impact across the African continent. Now, it's essential that we think about solutions that can have immediate impact to what we're trying to do. Now, when I was a student several years ago and sitting down in the room, I would attend events like this and start to ask myself, all right, somebody else is going to fix these problems and so on. And I used to always tell myself I wasn't, capable enough. And the question you ask yourself when specifically you think about moving home, it's the discussion goes, move home when you're ready, move home when you have enough money, move home when you have a proper plan. And what is enough money? How much is enough money? What is a proper plan? Because the plan is going to get thrown out the window as soon as you land. And what is enough experience, right? And these are questions, and we tell ourselves, but probably if you've had a discussion about moving home, somebody's probably mentioned something like this to you. And I made a decision after graduate school to move back to Tanzania. And during that time, I was working for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and decided to pack up and leave and go all the way back to Dar es Salaam and move back into mom's house, which was tough. It was a hard decision to make. And that was where I started the company Nala. And Nala today, we do cross-border payments for consumers as well as businesses across the UK, 19 countries in Europe, the US, and 5 countries in Africa. And at Nala, our mission is to increase economic opportunity for Africans around the world by enabling trade. So how do we reduce the cost of cross-border payments? How would you reduce the cost of FX losses that African folks are facing? Because Africa is the continent with the largest dollar shortage. And as we think about these things, this is what keeps me up at night. And as we build Nala, is asking ourselves, what can we do to help reduce the losses that many people, especially traders, are facing across the continent? Now, my advice to you as you're sitting in this room, there's many opportunities that we all collectively have, and by nature of statistics, those of you sitting in this room today, we would fall into the most privileged, top 1% of people financially in the world. If you think about it, if the top 1% puts you at an income of $30,000 a year, by nature of being at London School of Economics and graduating from there, you'd probably be earning above $30,000 a year. And so with privilege comes responsibility, but also all privilege is relative, right? If you're earning that amount of money, you're probably wondering, oh, my friends are earning this amount, so I want to be there. And, I think, as we say, comparison is a thief of joy. But if you really look at where you want to be and what you want to do, I think that responsibility is on all of us to ask ourselves that question, right? Is it you want to build some service back home in Africa? Is it you want to service the market while being in the UK or the US or wherever in the world you want to be? These are significant challenges to mentally overcome first before you jump into figuring out how you can, overcome them directly. I'd love to see this entire room be filled with entrepreneurs and people building incredible companies. I think, as Africans, we're incredibly talented, and an opportunity isn't equally distributed. And so by nature of sitting in London for you guys today at this conference, those are questions and discussions that you guys should be having with your peers or the people sitting next to you. There are people sitting in the room next to you who are going to start unicorns across the African continent. There are people who are going to get involved in politics that will change the continent forever. There's probably presidents, vice presidents, prime ministers, members of parliament sitting right next to you at this LSE Africa Summit. And my advice is to think big, and don't do it for the praise, but do it for your purpose as you want to sing what you want to do as you go forward from here. So as I wrap up, I see somebody's pointing at me the time. Actually, there's no time because it's a recorded video. And I'm probably holding people up from the after party or something. I remember these events, man. Like, people would go there like snooping of like, yo, like, who am I gonna talk to after that after party? Anyway, so I'll let you guys have your time back. But I think the piece I'd love to leave with you is, before I get there is, as we built Nala over the last 12 months, we grew from 7 people to nearly 100 people today in the last 12 months. And it's been quite a journey. We've grown. I've learned so much myself. I've learned more in the last several years of building Nala than I have my entire life. But the biggest thing is it's created a newfound love for the African continent. Africa is a complicated market and region in the world to work in. And, if we don't go back and try to figure out what to do, then who will, right? Expected change can come from many people, but there's no point of us sitting and complaining about it if we're not going to do anything about it. So I think that responsibility lies on all of us. And one thing I'd like to part ways with is leaving you with something I always tell my team. I always tell my team, look, if you don't take responsibility, you take orders. And that's a principle of life. In Swahili, it goes, usipojituma utatumwa. And so that's what I leave with all of you today. As you go from here, I know probably holding you guys up from the food or whatever, I think it's a responsibility that all of us have to think about, and how we want to see the digital revolution across technology change across the continent. And so I'd like to encourage all of you guys to look at that. And finally, and I know I've said finally a few times, and now I sound like a pastor in church. But in closing, I'd love to commend the Student Organization Committee for the incredible work that they've been doing in pulling together the LSE Africa Summit. I used to do this myself when I was a student, and I know it takes a lot of effort and work to pull something together. So if you see them, pat them on the back, they've probably not slept much. Give them a high five, and yeah, maybe take them out for East African biryani. Cool. Thank you all, everybody. And I really hope you enjoy the second day tomorrow. Kwaheri, asante sana, and take care. Cheers.